I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Sam.
And this is Progression in Progress. All right, welcome back to another episode of Progression in Progress. So I got to start off with some sad news. It's not actually incredibly sad, but slightly sad. So I just started school these last few weeks and things are starting to ramp up. And as you guys know, Sam is on the grind pretty frequently. He's working, I don't even know how many hours he works now, 60, 70, 80 hours a week. And this week, unfortunately, our schedules, Sam and I's schedules, did not line up with the person we're interviewing. The schedules just did not line up this week. So unfortunately, this is hopefully the first and last solo episode. So unfortunately, Sam was not able to join us for the interview. Like I said, the schedule just didn't work out. I'm going to just do the short little intro, have the interview with my wonderful friend Adam, and then I'll say a few things at the end. So this episode's going to be a little different than normal. We're hoping to get back to things, normal. We're hoping to get back to normal the following weeks, but just wanted to give you guys a quick heads up that this week is going to be a little different than normal because unfortunately, our schedules did not line up. It wasn't the same without Sad. I'm sad we missed him. I missed his perspective. But what we are planning on doing is because normally we do a post-interview conversation, Sam and I kind of discussing what we learned. And this week, because we didn't do it here on the podcast, on the actual episode, we're going to do that on Instagram. We're going to try to create some content on Instagram, kind of giving our thoughts, taking our takeaways from what we learned from this episode. So make sure to follow us at Talk Progression on Instagram. If you guys don't already follow me there or follow us there, if you don't follow us there, go check it out. We're going to be posting some content instead of a post interview discussion like we normally do. So to get into the interview this week, I this time sit down with my friend Adam. Now I recently just got to know Adam. If you guys do follow me on Instagram, you guys may have seen me post about the podcast I was featured on, Adamantium Antics. Now this is Adam from Adamantium Antics. He also happens to be my barber. That's how we met. It was a really interesting connection, a really interesting story. So if you guys haven't watched that Instagram video, maybe go check it out. It might provide a little bit of context to this podcast, but also we talk about it at the very beginning of the interview. So don't stress about it too much. But Adam's a great dude. I've learned a lot from him. The few times I have talked to him, he gave me a fly haircut. My mother said it's the best haircut I've ever gotten. And my mother could never lie to me. So, and besides the haircut, he's a great dude. Like I said, I've learned a lot. So I hope you guys enjoy this interview. Make sure to go follow Talk Progression on Instagram. We're also on Twitter. We're slacking on the Twitter game, but make sure to go follow Instagram for sure at Talk Progression. And also, I hope you guys, just enjoy this interview. I'm really bummed that Sam's not here, but we got to keep on that weekly grind, and we'll be back to normal next week. That's the plan. Okay, Adam, welcome to the podcast. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me, Jonathan. This has been something I've been looking forward to for a few weeks now.
Of course, dude. I guess just right off the bat, let's tell the story of how we met, because I feel like that really sets things up and makes things interesting. So I guess I'm going to give my perspective real quick, and I want to hear your perspective from the other side after I tell mine. So I normally get my haircuts here up in Provo, Utah, up in Aspen Salon. Great place. And I normally get my haircuts from this one very nice lady, but she's out right now on maternity leave. So the very nice front desk clerk set me up with Adam to get a bomb haircut from my man Adam. And we sit down and he starts working on my hair, doing a great job. And we kind of get to talking, a little bit of small talk as you normally do when you're getting a haircut. And I thought, Adam kind of told me how he decided to be a barber and just a little bit about his life. And I thought he had a really unique and interesting perspective. So I wanted to bring him here into the podcast. So I hit him up on Instagram after, and now we're here.
Yeah, you've got it spot on from your end.
Yeah.
And you have to know what went through my mind over the course of those days.
Yeah.
Because I think was it the same day or the next day, Jonathan, that you messaged me?
I think you messaged me back the first day, but then you kind of added some more info, I think is the second day is what you're probably talking about.
Well, no, I'm thinking because you messaged me, said, hey, I had a great haircut. Thank you so much. What do you think about coming on the podcast?
Oh yeah, yeah. That was the same day, all
Same
one
day.
day.
So
Yeah.
on the day that you came in and sat down in my chair, my first thought was, this guy's kind of beaming. Like, I saw you walking in, and I could see that you have some health difficulties,
Yep.
but I'm like, man, this is my kind of people right here. So you sat down, we started chatting, and then you told me you had a podcast, and I'm like, no way, like everybody says they got a podcast, but yeah, right. It's like everybody's got a blog somewhere. Back in the day, that's what everybody had, was a blog. I say back in the
Yep.
day, I'm only like 10 years older than you, but anyway, um, you sat down and we were talking about the podcast, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to listen. So I listened to I think it was episode 11 at the time. Was your most
Okay.
recent? I think that sounds right.
Probably episode 10 or 11.
10
yeah.
or 11? Maybe it was 10. Anyway, the point was, I listened to it and I'm like, okay, wow, there's no way. There's no way it's that easy. And so I downloaded the Anchor app.
Yep.
And I was like, I'm going to give it a try to see. And sure enough, I recorded that first one where it was just my spiel.
Yep.
And I'm like, I got this. I've wanted to have a podcast for years now. And I'm such a passionate person when it comes to these things that I was like, it can't be that simple. It wasn't that simple when I was looking into it a few years ago. You had to have like one thing for recording, and then for editing, and then for music, and then you had to pay for this and pay for that. And I was like, no way it's that simple. Sure enough, it was. So now I'm able to bring out my passion for the things that I'm passionate about. And even if I just share it with myself, then at least I get to share it.
I think that's a great story. And I think, some people might look at that and be like, bro, that's just an Anchor ad. But really, I see that. I just see it. Well, I think you're talking about it because that last part is really what I wanted what really stuck with me, is that you were able to express your passion. You were able to vocalize something that had been internal, and I'm sure you'd been able to share it in other ways, but you were able to share it in a new medium through that. And I think that's just a testament of your passion boiling over, which is the exact reason why I wanted to bring you in here today. The exact reason that when I was talking to you, when I was getting my haircut, and the exact reason that I messaged you after my haircut to bring you here into the podcast is because I feel like you've really got a passion for what you do. And I was able to feel some of that just by sitting in your chair for a little bit.
I'm so glad.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad I get to hear your side of the story, and let's just jump right into so I know why you decided to become a barber, but I don't think everyone here knows why you decided to become a barber. So I'd love to hear you retell that story so everyone else can hear why you decided to become a barber.
Okay. A little bit of backstory. I have done everything as far as a job. I worked at Subway. My first job was in a fitness center, like a gym, as the receptionist and take care of everything and maintenance and all of it. From the day I turned 16, I had a job. And if it wasn't one thing, it was another. I worked at a horse ranch where I broke wild horses and did everything else I could there. I worked in the oil field. I did a service mission in Honduras for a couple years. Man, I've done so much. But at the time, I was in Idaho Falls farming. I was farming sod, and then during the wintertime, I was driving semis and welding and building farm equipment. And I was tired. I was always tired. I would leave the house before my children woke up and then come home after they were in bed. I'd see them on the weekends, maybe a little bit in the early morning or late evening, but it was draining and I wasn't feeling fulfilled. And so I started to change my mindset. I started to listen to audiobooks while I was driving a tractor all day. I started to listen to podcasts, and that's when I got the passion where I was like, I want to do a podcast because all this stuff I'm learning, all things I think are cool. But
Yeah.
I changed my view at the time to start looking for the opportunity from where I was, start working and building. Well, I was sitting in a barbershop waiting to get my head shaved because I'm bald and my beard trimmed and then get my son's hair cut. And the barber there had an empty chair next to her that she had advertised on Facebook Marketplace for a barber to come and rent that space. And of course, I wasn't a barber at the time, but I looked at that chair and I had this premonition, this like clear vision of me standing behind that chair with clippers in my hand and working a fade. Now, I had never done that before. Man, I never thought I was going to do that before. I had cheap clippers back in the day. And, I did my haircut and I cut my companion's hair and, simple things like that. But I never thought of it as a career. I never thought it was something I would do. But when I sat there and I saw myself behind that chair, I thought at that moment, I could do that. Yeah, I could do that. I could have fun doing that. And I knew how much money I was going to pay that barber. I thought I could make some money. So later I messaged her and I said, hey, what do you think of this? What would it take? She goes, oh my gosh, you should check out the schools. Turned out she was an instructor at one of the local schools. And I went around, found one that I liked. And this was probably 2 months after I had that little vision that I quit my job and moved states, moved in with some family and started beauty school. Because not just being a barber, but I started cosmetology barber school together here in Provo, Utah.
Okay.
And man, that's been almost 2 years now. And I've been busting hump trying to make it work since then. And I think it is working. So it's not like not making it work, but I love what I do. I'm passionate about it. Every day I get to help someone change the way they feel about themselves and the way they look at themselves.
Yeah. I think, dang, well, I'm just sitting here with a big grin on my face because I think it's really cool that you have done everything under the sun, emphasis under the sun. It seems like you have done a lot of, I guess, what people would call physical labor, right? Hard labor. And then somehow you end up behind a barber's chair. And I think it's cool. I think that's a cool, this is progression and progress. I think it's a cool progression of how you started doing, XYZ and then ended up doing something way, way different.
Yeah.
And I really also, just from that little story retelling it, one new thing that I picked up on, and now I'm connecting the dots even more to your first episode that you did of your own podcast, right? I'm connecting the dots to creating the own opportunity. Sorry, that's not the first episode. That's the second episode.
Yeah, that was the one you and I had. Yeah.
The second episode, creating your own opportunity. I'm seeing how, learning more about your story, I'm seeing how you really took control of what you could. And that's a big theme here on this podcast. That's something that one of the most valuable things my father has taught me is to take control of what you can. And I love sharing that with other people. And I've seen how it's played a big part in my life. And I love hearing, you retell that story. And now I'm seeing that you really did take control of what you can. And you made it work for you or are attempting to make it work. And so far it is working out.
So there's a book that is called The Science of Getting Rich.
Okay.
It was written by Wallace D. Wattles. I think it was 100 years ago.
Okay.
Something like that. The book itself, if you listen to audiobooks, like an hour and 40 minutes long. But in it, he gave a couple of points that I drilled into my head. Now, I'm not joking. I would listen to this book every morning when I started my day in the tractor. And I would be done with it by 9 a.m. and I would go on and listen to other podcasts. But he said that you can get to where you want to be by doing your work now the best that you can. Okay. Too many times, especially in this world where we flop back and forth and we're just looking for something else and this isn't right and we're going there. Too often we think that in order to get where we want to be, we have to quit where we are. Instead of doing our work the best that we can do it. Busting our butt, long hours, tired hours, doing it the very best so that we can create that opportunity that we talked about in the podcast when you came to mind by doing your work. So you've got to begin where you are. Lift where you stand, right? That's another one that they say a lot. Lift where you stand. do your work to the best of your ability, and that will set you up for bigger and brighter opportunities. It'll set you up for someone to see what you're doing and say, I want him on my team, even if it's a different industry. It's not about, it's not about tasting every little thing. And I think that's where I kind of fell short and made my journey longer than it needed to be to get to a place where I could feel like I was doing something fulfilling. I did too many things when I was young and jumped around too often to be able to instead build where I could have built more, built myself up in order to be the kind of person I wanted to be so that I could arrive at the place that I'm at now. Maybe not necessarily sooner, but definitely better.
Yeah. That's an interesting concept, arriving better rather than sooner. But I guess, the age-old saying, better late than never.
Yes. I love what I do, and I wouldn't be the same person if I wasn't right here, right now.
No, it's all about the journey. It's all about the journey. In the episode that is coming out the week before your episode, so it's not out right now, but by the time this episode is out, the listeners will have had a chance to listen. And in that episode, I sit down with one of my friends who's a screenwriting major in LA.
Okay.
He's going to a school in LA, and we talked a lot about stories, and then connected at the end of the podcast how life's a story. And I feel like I'm very clearly, with that podcast fresh in my head, I just edited it. I can never say that word, edited it today. With that fresh in my head, I can see how your life story has been played out so far. I'm just getting little bits and details here and there, and you're telling me a story about your story.
Yeah.
But I think that just adds for me to the whole progression and progress of your life. It's not, it's a constant progression. It is. It wasn't something that happened overnight for you. And, some people, it may happen overnight or it may happen much sooner, but it really is personal to you. It's all about your own story and about your own progression.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, just kind of we're not changing subjects, but just to ask a follow-up question. One thing that I can feel like your passion is tangible almost. And I wanted to ask you, as kind of this whole little mini series that I'm doing here within this podcast is about Sam and I discussing what we want to do with our lives. And, we both have ideas of what we want to do. I'm very interested in business and economics and finance. And, I'm kind of going down that route for my schooling. I also have media and, this podcast and other stuff that I love. And Sam has some interests, he might be a few steps behind in figuring out what he wants to do, but he's definitely on that path. And I guess something that I feel like could help me and Sam, and hopefully other people, is what does that passion feel like? How do you know that that's what you're passionate about? What does it feel like? How do you differentiate between something you're interested in and something that you're passionate about?
That is an awesome question. I feel that when you ask, okay, so let me bring it in. I'm like feeling it and trying to get those words out.
Yeah.
The biggest thing for me, and I shared this with you, I think when you sat in my chair, but then in my first episode of my podcast as well, that your why for what you're doing, your passion has to manifest itself outwardly, okay? If it doesn't make you cry, if it doesn't make you tear up, if it doesn't make your heart race or your hair raise up and goosebumps come all over, make you chill a little bit, it's not strong enough. It's not strong enough to get you through those tough times. If you don't feel inside you, it's not going to be enough. Now, I have to be careful when I say that, because where I am is different than where a listener is in their journey in their life. A lot of them have the same question. I don't know what it is that I want. I like this, but I don't know if that's the thing for me. You're not going to feel that until you feel it. And I hate saying that because It sounds so stupid to say, oh, well, when you feel it, you'll just know.
Yeah.
Until you feel that, it doesn't make sense. But it begins where you are. It begins by fulfilling your current task the best that you possibly can, making of yourself the best you can where you are, and then saying, oh my gosh, this is it. I did a lot of different things through the years, but it all came down to a almost trivial moment that if for any reason I was tired that day and I hadn't gone to that barbershop, I wouldn't be where I am now.
Yeah.
If she hadn't been open that day or had an availability for me, I wouldn't have been there. If my kid didn't need a haircut that day, I probably wouldn't have been able to leave my wife and kids at home on the one day I was off and go to that barbershop to get a cut. There's so many little things that happened in order because I was doing everything that I could.
I love that. That's one of the themes that Sam and I have discovered while we've been doing this little mini series, is that it's a lot of times it's the small and simple things that end up having a gigantic impact on your life. For example, I talked with my cousin Ethan, and his little moment was that when we were teenagers, when we were 14 and 15, we played video games together, and that got him interested
Yeah, it was
in
Minecraft, wasn't it?
he just when we were 14 and 15, that's what got him interested in computer science. And then it's taken him, 6, 7, 8 years later, it's taken him where he is today. And in the episode that's about to come out, that's unreleased, with my friend Colin, he made little videos with his friends when he was kid. He's a kid when he was younger.
Yeah.
When he was in elementary school and middle school. It wasn't any giant or grand thing. And the same thing for you. I think that's just one of the biggest takeaways that I've had by doing this little mini series, is that it's the small and simple things, and then just taking those and run. And kind of in addition to kind of what you've been talking about, creating your own opportunity, lifting where you stand, doing the best where you're at. I think just all those things combined has that profound impact that we're looking for. We're looking for a gigantic, profound impact or profound moment, but rather that profound moments comes from a bunch of tiny things combined, I think.
Yes. And on that note, circumstance doesn't make the man, right? It's circumstance instead just reveals the man to himself.
Yeah.
But with that, too many small things, when we get caught up, when I was trying to start a podcast, I got caught up on, I need this app and that app and this, and I got to pay for that. Too many small things stopped me from being willing to take that step. It doesn't matter if you have it all laid out, but there's another phrase that I think came right from the same book from Wallace D. Wattles, that the world turns aside to let any man pass who knows whither he is going. Let that sink in for a minute. The world turns aside to let any man pass who knows whither he is going. Now, you don't have to have it all figured out, but you do have to be busting your hump to get there and figure it out. And nothing can stand in your way.
Nope. Well, Adam, I've just like the other conversations we've had, I've learned a lot from this conversation. So I really appreciate it. I can just, you just drop a knowledge on us, and I appreciate it.
And you and I could go on all night long. So.
Yes, we can. Adam, I feel like we're on the same wavelength right now, and I really do think we could go all night long. But we gotta keep this to a concise time period. I'm no Joe Rogan, no 5-hour podcast for me. But is there anything you want to close with? Anything, I want to talk about your podcast just for a second, but before we do that, I want to ask you if there's anything you want to leave the audience with, anything you want to leave me with, anything you want to leave Sam with, anything you want to leave the audience with, some closing advice.
So there's something that I am working on myself. In fact, all of these things that I mentioned, all the things that I share in my podcast, Adamantium Antics, are things that I'm working on for myself.
It's a progression in progress.
100%. I am coming at this from a difficult place. I've been through a lot of Schumer, let's say, I've been through a lot of things through the years that have made me struggle and really test my faith and my willingness to go on. But ultimately, I've got to work harder on myself than I do on my job.
That's often not a perspective that a lot of people come at it from. So I think that I appreciate you sharing that, that you got to focus on improving yourself. I'm sure you would say you got to work hard at your job, and I know you do, but
Yep.
I guess that's that extra little self-improvement is crucial, I guess.
It really is. So I guess to plug my podcast, okay, I mentioned Adamantium Antics. Just like Progression in Progress, you can find me on most of your favorite podcasting apps, Google Podcasts, it's on Apple Podcasts, it's on Overcast and Spotify, and as always, anchor.fm/Adamantium Antics. It was because of Jonathan's inspiration that I finally got mine going. I owe it all to him, and I hope that we have a relationship that lasts a long time.
Dude, I've just the few times that I've gotten to sit down and talk with you, I've always left with a giant smile on my face, learned a little bit and hyped up. So Adam, thank you so much for coming into the podcast. Guys, go check out his podcast. All the episodes are great. I did an episode with him. I'm featured on his second episode.
Yep.
So if you guys need a place to start, go check that out. But the first episode's great as well. So once again, thank you so much for hopping in here, Adam, taking time out of your busy schedule, your busy work schedule, your busy family schedule to spend some time with me and the audience. So I really appreciate it.
Jonathan, thanks. I love what you're doing. I'll hear from you soon. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you, Adam. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. I had a great time talking with Adam. He's just a great dude. He puts a smile on my face, just like I said in the interview. I don't know what else to say. He just puts a smile on my face and he drops some knowledge. So thank you, Adam, for coming into the podcast. I really appreciate it. And like we talked about, he's got his own podcast, Adamantium Antics. I was on episode 2, featured on episode 2. And if you guys want to hear if you guys want to hear us talk a little bit more just about kind of this stuff in general, that would be a great episode for you guys to listen to. But also if you want to hear a bit more about the backstory of Progression in Progress, the backstory of this podcast, and some things that I have shared here before, but not a ton or a long time ago or not super in depth. We kind of talk about some of that stuff over on his podcast. He did a great job interviewing me and got me to open up about some things. So I would highly recommend it. But once again, super sad that Sam's not here. Thanks for listening to the episode, guys. Like I said at the very beginning of the episode, we're doing some Instagram content this week because we're not doing a post-interview conversation like we normally do. We're going to post our reactions, what we learned from this, what we thought about it. Sam and I will be posting it to Instagram this week. So make sure to follow us there at Talk Progression. Like I said, we also have a Twitter at Talk Progression, but we're slacking on the Twitter game. Don't worry. Hopefully we'll get on that Twitter grind, but Twitter's kind of rough sometimes. But just one last thing before I end this, I'm probably rambling, even though this hasn't been going on for too long, this outro, I'm probably rambling, but you guys may have noticed that the Instagram content was a little slacking this week too, just a little bit. I'm trying to figure out how to balance school and running this podcast. I really loved making those videos and I thought they really highlighted well, they've vibed with me and I feel like they highlighted well things that we discussed here in the podcast. However, it takes a long time to make one of those videos from start to finish. When I sit down till I post it probably takes 2 hours to make one of those videos. And right now with my current school schedule, I'm having a tough time fitting that in. So I'm going to try to revamp or reimagine the way we do Instagram. If you guys got any ideas, hit me up. Always looking for feedback. Yeah, that's all I got to say. I hope you guys have a great week. Thanks for listening. Share this with a friend. That would help us a ton. We're trying to reach more people. If you guys got someone that we think we should interview, let me know. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. And like I said 1,000 times already, follow us on our socials. All right. Have a great week. Peace out. Bye.